You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now, a child is defined as one who has not reached the age of 18 years.
Therefore, they are said to be susceptible to vials such as violence, abuse, and neglect. Let's tell you more in this report.
Is defined in the British Council as anyone who has not reached their 18th birthday, irrespective of the age of majority in the country where a child is or in their home country. Nigeria has a population of over 100,000. Of that number, over 80,000 are children under the age of 18. Many of them are said to be vulnerable to a number of child rights violations, such as violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. In 2003, Nigeria adopted the Child Rights Act to domesticate the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Although this law was passed at the federal level, it is only effective if state assemblies also start. The Children's Rights Act 2003 was created to serve as a legal documentation and protection of children's rights and responsibilities in Nigeria. The law has three primary purposes: to incorporate the rights of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights into the national law, to provide the responsibilities of government agencies associated with the law, and to integrate children-focused legislation into one comprehensive law. It also acts as a legislation against human trafficking, since it forbids children from being separated from parents against their will, except where it is in the best interest of the child.
All right, joining us is a safety education advocate, Ugochi Obidiegwu. Ugochi, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you
Very
too.
good. Now, safety of children, certainly everyone would want this child to be safe, just as the country wants its citizens to be safe. Now, the concept of what parents are doing and what the government is doing and what the society is doing, all of these things, they fall in different categories. But whose responsibility it is most when it comes to the safety of the child on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, I would say it's the parent. But the thing is, it's actually a collective effort, because they can't act independent of each other. So yes, we know that the parents should equip the children, provide a safe environment, but then it doesn't just rest on them. When the children step out of the home, how is the society out there? Has the government put the right structures in place? Are there policies to engender the right things? Are there even systems that if something goes wrong, redress can be sought, you know? So they all have to play a collective role.
So if we have to put in proper perspective, what does child safety entail?
Basically, that will be ensuring that the child is safe from harm or injury. That's just the simplest way to talk about child safety. That at every point in time, a child is free from injury, from harm, from illness.
But the way that children play and the way that they can be exposed to not even only the issue of violence or on all of that, is it possible to actually have a child safe from all of these things?
Of course, that's where education and training comes in. If we teach these children, if we equip them, they can protect themselves. It's just that we find ourselves in a situation where people will think they are too small to act. No, they are not. All we just need to do is simplify the knowledge to their level. So if it's a child in nursery school, maybe you're teaching using a song, the child will remember. If it's a child that is much bigger, you're having good conversation, you're sharing books with them, you're having this conversation with them. And I find that once children know what to do, they act. Last year, I had to do a book reading session with some children, and we gave the example of a child that had been abducted in a church. And while I was still speaking, one of the girls at the book club said, that girl shouldn't have gone with a stranger without asking for the family password. So I was curious, how did you know that? And she said, I've read your child safety storybook before. So now that's a child taking something she read from a book and applying it to a real life situation. So if we actually teach them what to do, they can act.
Now, you have been into issues concerning child safety for about 3 years now. Talk to us about your work.
Okay, so we started the Train Them Young initiative because we saw that adults were a bit set in their ways when it comes to safety consciousness. And we thought that if we're able to train the children now, they would grow with it. And as they grow with it, it becomes a habit that can go into their workplaces in future. And to a large extent, that would help reduce accidents that is usually attributed to human error.
Is the focus just about avoiding accidents, or children having that knowledge of being safe?
It's actually everything together, because there's a part of how to be proactive, prevention, and then what to do when you even find yourself in this situation, because no matter how much you love your children, you would not be with them 24/7. So it's important that they are equipped with knowledge of what to do in different situations. So it's not just about preventing the accident, it's even giving them that consciousness. What are the habits, what are the attitudes you need to have up front so that the accidents do not even get to happen.
But what are the most things that threaten the safety of children now, if we consider the environment we live in here?
It's actually a variety of things. You know, there are things in the physical environment, maybe bad floors, bad playground toys. Then there's also the climate, for example, in a school environment. Are children being bullied? Oh, by the way, this is anti-bullying week. Do we even have schools that have an anti-bullying policy? You know, so if children say someone is bullying them, is there a procedure? Do people even know what to do? Because most times we just, because we are kind of religious, we want to fall back on, God forbid, it's not my portion. But that is not a strategy. We need to have active policies, active system, procedures in place so that children can protect themselves. And also the adults who are caregivers even know what to do. Because I find that a lot of teachers they were all trained, right? But their training has to do with the education aspect of things. Nobody taught them this part.
This
and so
issue
that's
of child safety.
So that's where we come in.
So what are the plans of ensuring that this issues or this discussion or conversation around child safety get across schools? Are you getting that response that you need? Okay,
so initially when we started, we let them know that it was free in 2016. Even though it was free, people still did not come on board. So what we did was we kept on going and we kept on documenting on social media. So what happened is when they saw that we're actually making impact, they started to reach out. So we've been able to reach over 5,000 children here in Nigeria and even in Ghana. And for the teachers, because we know we can't just teach the children and leave the teachers and school owners out of it. They need to know how to create a safe environment. So every year we organize an annual school safety summit where these teachers come together. Then we bring stakeholders from the government aspect of things so that there is knowledge transfer. So they also know what should we do in terms of school bus safety. So the road safety official teaches them what to do. What should we do in terms of child protection? So Barrister Kinlami will teach them what to do, you know. So that helps to bridge the gap.
All right. Ugochi Obidiegwu, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great.
All right, let's head to what steps parents or stakeholders when it comes to child safety can take to ensure that a child is safe.
Okay, so we need to ensure that we even have a policy that protects the children. Now, once a policy is in place...
There's a Child Rights Act.
Yes. Now, once that is in place, we need to ensure that standard operating procedures that suits the policy are applied. Because you see, different environments where children find themselves, whether it's schools, whether it's places of worship, whether it's libraries, they have different contexts. There are things that are basic to all of them, right? But then you have to make the system you have created to suit the context. The rules you're going to put, say, in a 3-story building will be totally different if it's in a bungalow. And so, yes, there are risks that are further in all areas, but then you need to always make sure it suits the context.
But
so
there
copy
are
and paste.
Some things that we can say are generic rules that parents can, you know, work with their children to ensure they are safe when they find themselves in any of the spaces, aren't there?
Of course there are.
Talk to us
so
about
for example,
that.
we need to ensure that anything that is going to cause injury, physical injury, is reduced. We also need to ensure that access procedure is defined. So for instance, in schools, we are saying that before somebody has to pick up a child from school, what is your pickup procedure? If a stranger just comes suddenly, if someone claims they were sent by a parent, do you even have a procedure to ensure that not just anybody can have access to that child? Unfortunately, not all schools have that, and that's why we have to do a lot of sensitization so they understand that these things have to be in place.
Like she mentioned the Child's Rights Act earlier on, although not all states have domesticated it, but we know it exists. The law is there for Nigeria, at least it is for Nigeria. But the point is, how far away from covering this safety issue that you talk about is the child safety?
Okay, so the Child Rights Act doesn't totally cover the aspect of safety. Okay. And that's why we have our safety professionals gunning for a national policy on safety and security for children. Because ideally, it's supposed to cover every aspect, but we can understand that maybe some things were not seen in that light. But then that's where this aspect comes in, you know. So it has to be covered, and it has to be, we understand that actually there are a lot of people that they're not even aware that this child rights law exists. Now, those that are even aware, they've not been able to see how to incorporate it in their system, and that's also where compliance comes in. We've been fortunate in Lagos, where the Lagos State Safety Commission has put audit officers to go around to schools, but they've not even been able to reach everywhere. And then Lagos is not Nigeria. This is something that should be implemented across all the states. So there's still a lot of work that has to be done in compliance, because even though we have created laws, even though we have policies, somebody needs to ensure that it's actually being executed to suit the context in different schools.
When it comes to the policy that you are advocating, what are recommendations for the issue of if you don't do this, there can be consequences? What kind of consequences are you looking at? Because those are some of the things that drive people to do things. It is either you're going to reward them or you're going to, consequences. What is the carrot and stick around it?
Internationally, in terms of safety, the usual penalties are fines and sometimes your jail term.
Okay.
Yeah, so when these things are executed and people can see that they would actually happen if you do not do the right thing, people will take dressing.
Okay.
Wow.